So I have no evidence for what I'm about to tell you. To give you sort of the short version of what is happening is technology disintermediates pretty much everything. So we talked about at lunch, we talked about the travel industry. So think back to when there were actual things as travel agents outside of the executive level corporate kind of stuff. Like everybody went there, and you were talking about this. And then think about the way technology has gotten in the middle of the financial services game, where it used to be Main Street Money Manager handled everybody's stuff or whatever, and now it's that person only handles certain types of accounts, and John Doe, for the most part, is doing it on his own or her own. Smart people will always find industries where there's a lot of money, and they'll go figure out how to get some of it. And so when we think about other businesses, and as an individual agent, you can run a business selling houses at a net profit margin of 60, 70%. That's crazy. Like, in a good way. I'm excited. I'm glad we're here. Stuff's going to get in the middle of that. And what I think we're probably going to see first, and I don't know when it's going to be, I have a hunch. I think what we're probably going to see first is across the board downward pressure on commission. And I think that it's probably going to happen when we see the millennial generation. I'm statistically old in the millennial generation, so I'm 35. And I think about if I were to sell my house right now for $500 or whatever it'd be worth, the idea of paying someone $30,000 to sell my house is asinine. It just makes no sense. Now, I'm a real estate agent. I built teams. I run teams. I coach real estate agents. Do not hear this the wrong way. That is a lot of money to take some pictures, to do some flyers, to do an open house, to run some ads, to then have the consumer pay $30,000 for. That's going to change somehow. And I think when it's going to change, and the boomer generation is accustomed to the way real estate has been done traditionally. And if they were to say, yeah, that's a lot of money, and I would have no idea how to go about selling my house myself, and or I'm too busy, and or I have better uses of my time, or whatever. So I think it's going to have to happen where the next big demographic wave, which is the millennials, when the millennials become sellers, is when the wave's going to be big enough to turn the tide on this. Millennials as buyers right now don't really care about commission rates because they don't have to pay them. Would you agree with that? Okay. So when the largest part of the millennial generation becomes a move-up buyer, so they sell and then buy, it's on the sell side that they're going to look at that and they're going to say, I don't know about that. And I'm not doomsday about this. I'm just saying there's so much money in this business that there's no reason that smart people aren't going to get in the middle of it and figure out how to either drive down cost or just put you out of business. And so here are a couple of things that if I'm thinking about this, here are some things that I would be looking at. The first is I would be working to be really, really, really clear on why I am special as a real estate agent. Why I am that, we talked about functionary versus fiduciary, why I am that fiduciary, why you need to hire me in order to help you with this, beyond whatever it is that you say right now. To build a massive enough brand awareness so that you have this huge audience that thinks about you. And I don't mean huge like all over Tampa, although it could be. I'm talking about huge within your niche. I think you have to be careful, opinion statement, I think you have to be careful not to freak out and resist the changes in the economics of this business when it comes. If I were looking to totally disrupt, we talked about this at lunch, if I were looking to totally disrupt the market that I'm in, I don't run a sales team these days, all I do is coach. However, hypothetically, if I were to do that, I live in a market where the average sale price is about $500. The average age of a real estate agent is about 60 years old. The first thing I would do is I would do all of what the traditional real estate listing agent does from a marketing standpoint and more, and do it for less. And then I'd tell everybody. and then I'd piss everybody off, and I would put them out of business. Because, hear me out on this, because the margin is so high that I could afford to run a multi-million-dollar organization at a 15 or 20% margin and put everybody else out of business who's entrenched on having a higher margin. And the initial pushback would be that they would say, well, he won't do the same thing that I do for this money. And I'm going to say, wait a second, I actually do a lot more, and here's what it looks like. And then so the consumer says, all right, so you're doing all of this stuff that they're doing and more for less. Where do I sign? Now, I don't know how long it's going to take to get to this en masse. It's happening in little pockets, and people are doing less and charging less, and that's always the case. I'm talking about disruption of a market with someone who is willing to do more, who has figured out a way to do enough volume to sell it, to do it for a fair price. That means that technology is there as a marketing and branding tool, not as a disintermediary. Now again, I made every bit of that up. I don't know if it's right. I think it is. So what does that mean for us? What that means for us is your database is always going to be important. The people that you know, that you trust, and they know you and they trust you, and then your knowledge and level of expertise in this business and your ability to interpret what's going on and help them make good decisions and be a trusted resource and be a connector and all of that stuff, none of that goes away. Technology doesn't get in the way of that, it only amplifies that. So if you start thinking about things like social media and video and all this other stuff as a way to just get your message out faster to more people, assuming that you're saying something relevant and you get it out faster to more people, that's just branding. It's no different than mailing 10,000 postcards to a neighborhood you want to be in. You're just doing it in a way that people would like to consume it. I hope that's exciting. It may feel a tad daunting at the moment. What's exciting to me about that is that perhaps that's going to weed out a lot of people. Because there are a lot of people in this business right now, and there's no judgment here. I struggled my first year in real estate, and some of you heard that story this morning. If there's a real estate agent who's struggling to be profitable in this market right now, that person will not survive. They won't survive the next downturn. They won't survive downward pressure on commission rates. They won't survive disintermediation by technology. They won't survive any of it. You're in the room, so you got to hear it, and maybe my crystal ball's right. I don't know. And if it's not, then carry on. Good luck.